Welcome back, students. University of Arizona Global Campus. Welcome back. BUS311. Business Law. I am Dr. D still, and you are amazing students still. Wonderful job in week one. This is a tough course. I mean, we're only in week one, and you already had an opportunity to do a deep dive into criminal law, court law. You kind of determining what the difference between a crime and a tort is. You had an opportunity to apply those concepts to hypothetical case situations. And if that wasn't enough, you finished off week one with a quiz. So, wonderful job. Keep up the good work. I have so much respect for all of you. I know that you're all working adults, managing work life, family, school balance there. So, just a wonderful job there in week one. As we move into week two, we're going to start to look at a very important concept in law, and that is contract law. Uh, and so we'll look at the elements of contracts over the first couple of days there. As we move into the week, we'll start to look specifically at sales contracts. You'll have a quiz that kind of puts that all together as we start to get to the end of the week. And then finally, at the end of the week, you do have a critical analysis paper that will be due on day 7. That's going to be worth approximately 10% of your grade. So this week, I want you to concentrate on defining the essential elements of a valid contract. You want to be able to apply those elements of a valid contract to a fact pattern or a set of facts. You want to be able to understand and evaluate different remedies for breaches of contracts. And then finally, explain the role of the Uniform Commercial Code and how that plays a role in contracts for the sale of goods. So, as we begin to transition from week one to week two, we'll go from general principles to a set of specific principles and laws as it relates to business law. And in this case, as it relates to contract law. Contract law and contracts are probably the most important artifact that we have in our legal system. So by the end of the week, you should be able to describe and apply the elements of a valid contract. Very important to make that distinction there. And then be able to evaluate the remedies in the event of a breach of contract. So you should be able to explain the UCC, that's the Uniform Commercial Code, and how that plays a very important role when we talk about contracts for the sale of goods. You'll also have a 3 to 4 page critical analysis paper that will be due at the end of the week. That paper is really going to give you the opportunity to implement these concepts and principles that you've learned, particularly as it relates to contracts, and then be able to identify remedies for breaches of contracts that either you have entered in or someone that you know has entered in. There will be a quiz this week. The quiz will be due by day 6. And remember, those quizzes are there to reinforce your learning, and they're worth approximately about 5% of your grade. So that's a nice little percentage there. Remember, you want to do your reading, you want to do your discussion board postings and your analysis before you start taking the quiz, before you start your critical thinking assignment, okay? So in week two, there is a lot of reading, chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to get back on my soapbox again when it comes to the reading. I've been in your shoes before, especially at the undergrad level. There is just so much reading. Not suggesting anyone in this course would do that, but it's so easy to just kind of skip over the reading in favor of the discussion board postings and in favor of the critical thinking assignments, which are things that get you points for the course. But when we talk about knowledge and tacit knowledge and the transfer of knowledge, that's only coming from one place, and that is coming from the reading. So, for those of you that really want to understand law, really want to understand business law, perhaps you see yourself in a future where this knowledge will help you. Anyone that's going into management, executive management, ownership, administration, law is the foundation for everything you do. So please, please, please read all four of those chapters, word for word, line for line. And then there's the UCC. We've got a link there for Cornell Law School. I'm not going to ask you to read that whole thing, but what I do want you to do is read for argument. So there'll be some case studies or hypothetical case studies that you'll have to analyze. You may be responding to discussion board postings of your classmates. And so you can go through the UCC as reading for argument, meaning that you're looking for evidence to support your discussion board postings, to support your response to discussion board postings, to integrate that information into your critical thinking assignments, to understand the information in the UCC so well that if you were to see a question related to that on the quiz, you would be able to answer it. So read the first four chapters in the textbook, word for word, line for line. Read the UCC for argument in order to get the evidence that you need to support your positions, to support your analysis, in both the discussion board postings and on the critical thinking assignments. Okay, speaking of those discussion board postings, your discussion board number one will be due on Thursday. And in the initial posting, you're just going to answer a couple of questions there. Well, first of all, you're going to, at the end of chapter 4, you're going to read chapter 4, then there's a video there. So you're going to look at that video. It has something to do with Scarlett Johansson and how she sued Disney for breach of contract. And then you're going to answer questions based on that scenario, like what were the terms of the contract between Johansson and Disney? Did Disney perform under the contract? What, if any, potential defenses for fulfilling the specific terms of the contract? Was there even a breach of the contract? And if so, by whom? And did the breach affect the fulfilling of the contract? And then finally, did Johansson suffer any damages? And then how would you determine that? That's some pretty hardcore analysis for week 2. No way you'll be able to do that analysis without doing the deep dive in the reading. Please make sure you're doing the reading. Also, I'm looking for evidence in your initial postings, and I'm looking for evidence that's coming directly from the course content. So, yes, I want you to give me a good, robust initial response to your discussion board prompt, but I want to see evidence from your textbook to support your responses. I want to see evidence from the UCC to support your response. I would not like for you to just go all over the World Wide Web to get evidence. Use the evidence that has been provided for you in order to refine your analysis, okay? And then, of course, you have to respond to at least two of your classmates as well, not necessarily looking for you to support your responses, but anytime you're in an academic environment and you are asserting facts, you are applying law to fact patterns, always a good idea to have evidence to support your position. Okay, we're moving on to discussion board form 2 in week 2. So prior to the discussion board, you will read chapter 7. And in your initial posting, you're going to review case 1. It's about Lucita and Baking World. It's a hypothetical case problem. You can find it in a chapter summary in chapter 7. So part of your initial posting, you're going to first of all answer, was there a valid contract? And if so, I want you to apply the elements of the contract to the fact pattern. And if it wasn't a valid contract, then tell me what elements were missing. That second part, if Baking World were to only ship, let's say, 10 pounds of flour, does that change your analysis? Is there still a valid contract? If Baking World were to ship cornmeal, is there still a valid contract? Why or why not? And was there a breach in the contract? And if so, why? If not, why? And then that will help you answer, were there any damages for a specific breach? And if so, what are the remedies? Remember to support your initial posting with evidence directly from chapter 7, directly from the UCC. Those are the artifacts that we're using in this discussion board posting to provide support and evidence. Please make sure you are responding to at least 2 classmates. Please do all of that within the 7-day window. There is a quiz that will be due by the 21st. It is a 10-question, 10-point quiz. After you activate the quiz, you'll have 12 hours to complete it. It must be taken in one sitting. And then finally here, you have a critical analysis paper. This paper will include concepts from chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. In your paper, you're going to describe an example of a contract that you or someone else has entered into. So that could be a rental agreement, a cell phone agreement. Maybe you've purchased some other type of property, or maybe you've leased something. Maybe you had a home repair or a car repair. If you're a student, maybe you've entered into a student loan agreement. So in your description, you're going to provide specific contractual details, including the parties and the subject matter of the contract. You're going to define the 5 essential elements of an enforceable contract. You're going to describe how each of these essential elements apply to your example. You're going to explain the circumstances of a breach of contract in your example, and then discuss the possible remedies for a breach. I would highly, highly suggest that you use these bullet points as section headers. So I'm giving you here 5 bullet points. Describe the example of a contract, define the elements, describe the elements, explain the circumstances, discuss the remedies. I should see 5 section headers. Make it easy for your instructor to grade your paper by making sure that you have all the elements of the assignment accounted for. The best way to do that is to have section headers at the top of each section telling me exactly what you have in that section. Okay? Remember, as a writer, you are always writing for the benefit of the reader. And if that's the case, make it easy for your reader. You should be able to organize and present your research findings in an orderly, detailed, and organized way, one that the reader can easily consume your research and then go out and act on your call of action, uh, if applicable. Okay, so everything is in APA. That means it must be double spaced, it must have in-text citations. Your paper must be 3 to 4 pages. That does not include a title page or a reference page. You must have a title in bold font. You must have a space that appears in between the title and the rest of the information on the page. This is on your title page. It must have your student name, the University of Arizona Global Campus, the instructor name and number, the course name and number, and the due date. You must have an introductory and a concluding paragraph with clear statements. You do have the writing center. So for those of you that get off to an early start, get some feedback from the writing center resources that will likely help you get a better grade. You must have at least 2 credible or scholarly sources in addition to the textbook. So the textbook is one, and then you need 2 other peer review sources or credible sources. So even though that UCC isn't peer review, it is credible. And any legal source that you have coming is a credible source, although it may not be a peer review source. Okay, so let's just take a minute and talk about that here for a second. You have scholarly sources, which is the highest level of evidence that you have. And these scholarly sources include articles from peer-reviewed journals, excuse me, information from academic textbook, information from .edu websites, information from .gov websites. Highest level of evidence that you have, scholarly sources. Now, there is a level under that called credible sources. Credible sources come directly from the producers of the content. So, white papers, industry trade association papers, professional trade association papers. In this case, the UCC, for example, that's coming directly from the sources of law. So those are credible. Sometimes credible sources can also include things like newspaper articles, magazine articles. So they haven't risen to the level of peer review rigor, but they are credible because they're coming directly from industry subject matter experts that are in the field conducting the business. Saying all of that to say, be careful with the .org references. Be careful with the .com references. Please stay away from blog references. Even if those blogs are coming from EDU websites or GOV websites, they're still opinion pieces that haven't gone through the requisite rigor. So please make sure you're using only scholarly sources or credible sources in all of your critical analysis papers, as well, really, as your discussion board postings as well. So I'm not going to belabor this point anymore. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the week 2 assignment, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to connect with you on a one-on-one, go over the requirements. I don't have the privilege to give you feedback on an assignment before it is submitted. But before it gets submitted, if you want to talk about the requirements, you want to talk about strategies, organizations of your paper, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay, so that is week 2. I look forward to participating with you on the discussion board postings. I look forward to reading your critical analysis paper. Please reach out to me with any questions, comments, or concerns.